Okay, the cost volume analysis model is good for evaluating different sites on the basis of cost, but what about more qualitative factors? I mean, clearly there may be factors that we think will affect the overall profitability of the company that are a little more difficult to quantify. For example, we might be concerned about the business climate in one particular location or area, country, city, whatever, might feel that it is relatively unfavorable compared to other possible locations, and that could count against that location that has the um, perceived lesser, um, lower quality business climate. But again, how do we actually quantify that? Similarly, if we're interested about retaining good workers, we may be concerned about the quality of life in the region or city that we locate our facility. If we need to hire a lot of highly skilled workers, we may want to be located near a university or college. Okay, all these are things which are a little harder to quantify than strict setup or fixed costs and variable costs we were looking at in the previous model. But we still have a model here that we can use to help us reach a decision based upon these sorts of more subjective qualitative criteria. Um, that's called the factor rating model. Now it does use some fuzzy numbers. By fuzzy I mean very subjective numbers, and while that can count against it in some circles, I think I would argue that fuzzy numbers are better than no numbers if they're honestly arrived at. One of the problems with fuzzy numbers is that it's easy for people with an agenda to sort of manipulate them. But if you actually have people who are really interested in making an honest, good decision, I still think that fuzzy numbers are better than no numbers. Again, if you make a good attempt at getting as close to true values as you think you can. Okay, so how does the factor rating model work? It's really quite simple. Few easy steps. The first step here is simply list the factors, and I've got a very simple example here. There's a little more involved example in the book, but we just got three factors listed here, the same ones I listed above: overall business climate of the potential location, the quality of life for the employees at the potential location, and the proximity to higher education at the potential location. And then what we're going to do is rate the importance of each of these factors. That's step 2. So we basically are assigning a weight to the importance of each one of them. And in this example, it looks like I am most concerned. I give it a weight of 60%, or 0.6. Again, these fractions could be thought of as percentages. If it's percentages, of course, 0.6 is 60%, 0.1 is 10%, 0.3 is 30%, and so forth. They all have to add up to 1. And in this example, I've given the heaviest weight to business climate, the next heaviest weight, 30%, to higher education, and quality of life only gets 10%. I'm not completely forgetting about it, but it's not getting a huge weight. So that's step 2. Step 3, also pretty simple here. I just have to score each site on each factor. So if I have a team of folks together and I say, okay, I want you guys to, on a scale of say 0 to 100, give me a score for business climate, quality of life, and proximity to higher education for each of the two locations, location A and location B, that we're considering. So the team converses amongst themselves and decides that on a scale of 0 to 100, if location A gets a score of 50, and location B gets a much higher score of 90. So it looks like location B is doing a better job, or has a better potential in terms of having a favorable business climate for our potential facility. Also, location B does a little better in terms of quality of life. Okay, it gets a score of 30 versus a score of 10 for location A. However, when it comes to proximity to higher education, at least quality higher education, location A outdoes location B. It gets a score of 70 on a scale of 0 to 100, whereas location B only gets a score of 30. So either there's not a university here perhaps, or maybe it's not as prestigious a university as there is at location A. So I've scored each of the 2 sites on each of the 3 factors, and that means all I need to do now is total up those scores, okay, for each location, and that tells me which of the 2 locations is preferable. So again, to get the total, I take for each of the 3 factors the weight times the location, and add those products across each of the 3 factors and get a total for that location. So for example, for location A, this 52, which is the total score for location A, is simply 0.6 times 50 plus 0.1 times 10 plus 0.3 times 70 gives me a grand total of 52. For location B, 0.6 times 90 plus 0.1 times 30 plus 0.3 times 30 gives me a total score of 66. So based on this analysis, again, these are subjective weights, these are subjective scores, but based on this analysis, if I trust these fuzzy numbers, it looks like location B is the winner with a total score of 66 over location A with a total score of 52. So again, a very simple approach, just a few steps necessary. List the factors, determine the subjective weights, and then evaluate each location on each of the 3 factors, and then calculate these total scores as the last step, which is basically just a matter of multiplying the weights times the location scores, and then adding them up across the different factors.